Good morning, all. Welcome to TPC Training's webinar, 5 Ways Mobile Forms Can Accelerate Your Performance and Productivity. We're going to be talking to you about some new technologies available for doing some workforce development with your people and also some on-the-job training with your employees and staff. So we got 2 of us today who are going to be chatting with you. Eric Aubrey, our VP of Workforce Development with TPC Training, and me, Ryan Smith, our product manager of instructor-led training in our product. So I'd just like to let everyone know that this presentation will be made available on our website after this session is over, and we'll give you all the information you need to access that after this webinar is concluded. And at the end of this webinar, we're going to be taking your questions, and so feel free to find the chat box toward the bottom of your controls toolbar and type away any questions you might have, and I'll collect those questions at the end of the webinar, and we can go through the Q&A at the end of the webinar. We appreciate you all being here, and we're looking forward to talking about some of this new technology. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Eric, and we'll get started. Eric?
Great, Ryan, thank you. And thank you all for joining us this morning. I'm joining you this morning from just outside Philadelphia, and where the weather is beautiful, but my voice has may want to take a vacation this morning, so I apologize if I get a little raspy here throughout through the presentation. Well, as Ryan said, very excited to bring you this TPC webinar. We're going to talk about the 5 of the key ways mobile forms can accelerate your performance and productivity, and we'll dive right in here. So the challenges many of us face, right, with paper are, fairly obvious, right? We're dealing with paper forms, we may be dealing with faxes, emails, and keeping these things straight. And if we have to somehow, go through those communications and try to come up with some sort of common theme, that can be a real challenge. And so some of the common things, challenges that we hear regarding paper forms from our clients include, I spend half my time trying to collect data for reports. And I had a conversation earlier this week with a certified safety professional, just as an example, who literally spends half his week, that's where I got my first bullet here, running around trying to collect safety data to be able to report on it, which they do every week. But again, his job really should be trying to make for a safer workplace, when really he spends half his time running around trying to collect data for reports. I struggle to track deficiencies, and I can't easily identify trends. Another common challenge, and by deficiencies I mean there's some issue. This may be an employee observation, a behavioral observation, where perhaps we identify the fact that an individual hasn't been trained appropriately. Well, that would be a deficiency in our world. And but being able to track that, and then being able to look at that data over time. If you're using these various other paper forms, faxes, emails, it can be a real challenge to be able to aggregate that data and make sense of it. Well, this is a famous one, right? I'm missing the information I need. And so I know likely many of you out there have received a form at some point that's been filled in, but only partially. And it doesn't give you the information you need to make the appropriate business decision. And so that's a problem. The next one here, identified issues are not being resolved. So even if we're able to identify issues or knowledge gaps or safety issues or quality issues, we can't know for sure whether they're being resolved. And even if we're lucky enough to identify them, how do I know that situation has actually been rectified? And when was it rectified? By whom and where was it rectified? And so, again, some of the common challenges that we hear from our clients regarding paper forms, faxes, emails, etc. We'll dive right in. In terms of mobile forms and the way that they can accelerate performance and productivity. And I'm going to give you our top 5 here from our perspective. The number 1 way to accelerate performance and productivity is speed. So eliminating the collection time related to paper forms and faxes, emails, attachments, etc. The data with a mobile form, when submitted, is aggregated in real time across your organization. So dramatically improving the way you're able to collect that data. Our number two top way to accelerate performance and productivity is process improvement. It dramatically changes the process. So it eliminates that movement of paper. In a lot of cases, we see clients who are gathering paper and then they're doing data entry now that they've received the paper. That means you're going to be making errors, and it takes a lot more time to collect that data. Improving your process via mobile form can improve the quality control of work. So, for example, doing a quality control of work that's been performed at your site. A mobile form can dramatically help that process, and I'm going to demonstrate exactly how that works in just a little bit. Work acceptance. A contractor is at your site doing work, and you want to be able to accept that work and then be able to bill for that work. So again, mobile forms can dramatically help in terms of that. And then in terms of process improvement, identifying knowledge gaps, and in my earlier example with the certified safety professional, amazing what you can do in terms of identifying safety issues and rectifying those. My number three is rich data collection. And so what I mean by that is, with a mobile form, dramatically different than paper, right? So, because it includes not only the data that you want to collect, but with that mobile form, we can do a database lookup, meaning if we have all of our employees in the system, I can be doing an employee observation. I go into the form, I type in the first three letters of someone's name, I can pull up Eric Aubrey, and I can do that behavioral observation. It prevents me from having to type anything. In addition, we can collect photos, we can collect signatures, a GPS location, a geostamp, and a date and time stamp on each one of these mobile forms when they are submitted. So dramatically changes the ability to collect that data in real time. The other really important piece is that there are data rules that we can include in that mobile form that can auto-identify knowledge gaps, deficiencies, or items that are out of acceptable range. And I would say almost with any paper form that you're using, this can really increase the usability of not only the user plugging in data with the mobile form, but also when you get that data back into your dashboards and reports. Number four is the ability to improve compliance. And so that begins with, number one, being sure that only the most current form is available to your users. We know of client scenarios where we have seen lots of them where not sure whether the folks in the field are actually using the most current form. Well, we can guarantee that, that they only have the most current form available to them on a mobile device. The other thing is user accountability, so increased user accountability. So we can know who, when, and where a form was submitted. So dramatically improving visibility and accountability of folks. The other important thing is with mobile forms, we can that form submission can trigger an automatic email notification of any deficiency that's identified for immediate action. And so the folks who are responsible for rectifying a particular issue get an email notification immediately and can take immediate action if necessary. The fifth of our top five here is the ability to identify trends. So the way that this data is collected in real time allows for faster data processing, right? And your ability to view the data, but also with the built-in rules, know immediately when things when you have a deficient condition. Next is the ability to compare data over time. So Again, with paper, very difficult to do this. And we have a client whose current process was to lay out the last 7 days of an inspection. This was in a plant environment, so inspecting equipment at a plant. They would lay out the last 7 days of paper forms on a desk and look over the data to try to identify if there were any trends. Well, really, really difficult to do that. When you are using a mobile form, it becomes very, very easy to identify those trends, and which just leads to better business insight, better business decisions. And lastly here, the ability to collect lagging and leading indicators. So, a lagging indicator would mean we're collecting data on things that have happened. We're recording things that have already happened. Those are lagging indicators, and there's nothing we can do about that. Right? We collect them for reports, and that's great. But again, without the ability to collect leading indicators as well, it makes it difficult for us to predict where an issue may come up in the future. And with mobile forms, you have the ability to collect lagging, certainly, but also leading indicators. And this provides a path to predictive analytics. And one example I can give you is if we are doing site safety inspections with, let's say, with contractors, we may be doing a site safety inspection based on one contractor, another contractor. And over time, when we look at the data that we collect, the system can gather that data and parse the data such that it's very easy to identify that when we use Eric Aubrey contractor, that our safety issues go up. And so it lets us know that we may want to reconsider who we are using for future projects. And so this ability to collect not only things that have already happened, lagging indicators, but also leading indicators that take us down that path to predictive analytics. So I want to talk a little bit about mobile form uses and kind of the way to perhaps consider your own scenarios. So we'll look at some common uses, beginning with observations. And again, behavioral observations, safety observations, you name it. If you're using a paper form, the fact is it may be a good use or it may be a good instance where a mobile form may be more powerful. Any sort of inspection that we're doing, an audit, work orders, right? Even on-the-job training skill assessments. And like I said, pretty much any kind of paper form that you're using may be a good fit for a mobile application. Some of the features that are available using mobile forms, on and offline functionality. So it's a really important feature because we have lots of client scenarios where you may be in the middle of nowhere in terms of your connectivity. And so important that the mobile form be able to work on and offline. This concept of the real-time collection of not only the data that you want to collect within that form, but thinking about, well, would it be useful to gather a photo of that particular scenario? Would it be useful to get a signature from perhaps a contractor who is doing work? We're doing an inspection of that contractor work. Would that be useful? Would it be useful to grab a GPS location so we know exactly where the form was submitted? Okay. And lastly, and this is a really important one, immediate notification of deficiencies. So the form is smart in that if you have filled it in and you have identified something that is a deficient condition, it is out of range, out of the acceptable range, et cetera, that there are immediate notifications that go to the folks responsible for rectifying that situation. Yeah, and I'll show you in just a minute exactly kind of how that works. This is an example of a mobile forms management notification that comes in, and I'll demonstrate that live for you in just a second. Okay. So in terms of the advantages of mobile forms, some of these things are going to be obvious to you, but certainly eliminating paperwork and the paper shuffling and the trying to aggregate that data yourself from various sources. The system provides a nice way to simplify processes, right? We can dramatically streamline that data collection for you. The mobile system can improve the speed and accuracy of your reporting. Again, if you have any kind of processes right now where you're collecting paper forms, where you have to re-enter data, well, that's a process that can be easily streamlined, and it will help your reporting accuracy. And lastly, helping to ensure regulatory or corporate compliance. And again, by identifying a deficient condition, sending a notification so that it can be rectified, we have an audit trail of exactly what has happened, the condition that was identified, and how it was rectified. We mentioned just some system features next. And it begins with being able to parse the data that comes in. And so mobile forms, a system can provide a multi-site filtered view. And really that can be arranged based on the way your organization is structured. But we can look at these mobile forms by project, by job responsibility, by line of business, or just based on your business structure. So you have an East group, you have a West group. We can look at these mobile forms that are coming in a filtered view that provides you exactly the data that you would need to use in order to take the appropriate action. The next is dynamic dashboards with drill down capability. And so we provide you a nice filtered view of what the information that you need, but you have the ability then to drill down and go deeper into that particular, right down to the particular inspection that was done, mobile form that was submitted. And then lastly, flexible workflows with automatic email notifications. And so when we identify a condition that is deficient, it's not the desired condition for a data field, we can send notifications, one or many, to the folks who are responsible for rectifying those scenarios. Okay, and lastly, I want to talk about just some of the results of the analytics, and then I wanted to dive into an actual mobile form and take you through some of the feature set and processes that are available. This is a major one. We can ensure that no deficiency is forgotten, that it falls through the cracks, right? This is big, and so if you are talking about compliance issues, regulatory in particular, if you identify an issue but you don't rectify the issue, that can be very, very painful in terms of fines associated with those things. We have a client who, prior to using mobile forms, was inspecting vehicles. And when a piece of the vehicle was missing, for example, a ladder or some other piece of the vehicle is missing, when that is inspected by the regulatory folks, there are heavy fines sometimes that are associated with these things. So nice way to be able to ensure that nothing is forgotten. Right? The other thing the mobile form system can do is track corrective actions. So we know who did what and what they did to correct that activity. The system keeps an audit trail of all of those identified deficiencies and how they were corrected. We're able to more easily identify trends over time. And by gathering the data and having a multi-view, a multi-day view, multi-month view, multi-year view, a lot easier to identify trends than certainly trying to wrestle with papers to identify those things. A system like this can help to allow you to make proactive, right, well-informed decisions. You get all the information that you need to make a well-informed decision. And so what I'd like to do now is take a look at an example of a mobile form in action. And let me go ahead. And what I'd like to do next is just share my iPad with you. I'm going to just mirror this. Okay. All right.
Yes, we're seeing that clear, so we're good to go.
Okay, great. So what I'm doing is I'm mirroring my iPad right now, and we have this is a mobile forms demo system that we have for you here today. First off, the form will require me to log in, so let me go ahead and do that. Now, the importance of this is, there we go. I have logged in as a forms manager, and you see in the top left-hand corner of the mobile form, forms manager. Ordinarily, this would be my name. So the system, based on my login and my user role, knows exactly who I am, what my job function is, and then associated with that, which mobile forms should be presented to me on my device. And so for me, in my particular job function, you'll note here that we have two forms. There's an on-the-job training. The first one is EMO1, Evaluated Circuit Skill Demo. Okay, that I can fire up. I can use that mobile form. The second one is a site safety inspection, a demonstration form. Okay, so again, based on your users and your user roles, the system will provide those folks not only the most recent version of the mobile form to ensure that, but also only the forms that are appropriate for that person's job function. Okay, I know that following our demonstration, Ryan's going to take us through a little discussion about on-the-job trainings and being able to use on-the-job trainings in a mobile form. Very, very powerful stuff. This is the first form that I have noted here, this EMO1. Okay. I am going to open that just briefly. We won't actually complete this, but I did want to just show you a couple of features of a form like this. This, for example, is the performance area of this on-the-job training is electrical maintenance. You see that displayed at the top of the form. And the task that we will be performing here is to evaluate a circuit. Right? And then you see a number of fields: observe, practice, qualify, etc. One thing to note is there is a yellow indicator bar. And wherever you see in the mobile form a yellow indicator bar, that means that this is a required field. Okay? And we discussed earlier this concept of getting a form that is not complete. You don't have all the information you need to make the appropriate decision. This is a way for mobile forms to control that so that you have a field that is not optional. And so you see observe has the yellow bar, practice, qualify, etc. all have the yellow bar. And that simply means it's a required field. You cannot submit the form without that. Okay? So just a quick example of the OJT here. At the end of going through all of the information on the page, we would ask for the employee to sign. We would ask for the evaluator to sign. Okay. So I wanted to give you a brief look at that. I know Ryan's going to do a deeper dive on the OJTs in just a second. But so let me pop out. I'm going to do an actual site safety inspection for you here live. And in our example today, this presumes that we are doing a site safety inspection of a contractor's work. All right, and so you'll note a couple of things here. The form on the left-hand side labels all of the sections of the form, and so this would mimic a paper form with section headers. Right? General safety, electric, hand power tools, etc. And you'll note that the fields on the right change as I touch, each of these sections on the left. Okay. And so let's slide over to the right, and we'll see that the observation date and the observation start time are already completed. So the form is smart. It knows what time it is and knows what date it is. I mentioned earlier that mobile forms have the ability to do lookups. And this is essentially a lookup into a database. And so this presumes that we have numerous locations that we might be observing here for site safety. I'm going to tap that location, and I'm just going to do a search. And in honor of Ryan being in Buffalo Grove, we'll do a little search on BUFF, and the system will pull up everything with BUFF in its name. I'm going to select Buffalo Grove. I'm going to do a GPS location. I'm going to do a lookup on the contractor companies who are doing work for us. And I'm just going to assume, let's do ABC. I'm going to do a search. So any company with ABC pops up. So I'll choose ABC Services, Inc. Okay. And our point of contact at the contractor company. I'll do a little search. I know the fellow's name is Jim. Let's do a search on the Jims in the system. Okay, so any name with JIM pops up. And there's Jim Boyd from ABC Services. That's our contact. I can add any comments. I can spell it correctly or incorrectly. Okay. And now let me just go through some of the other pieces of the form. Under general safety, let's go ahead and we'll switch to that. Essentially what we have here are, we've taken an OSHA form for a general site safety, which may be familiar to some of you here, but again, the data fields that we're collecting here, these are going to be conditions that are satisfactory or unsatisfactory. And so the health and safety plan is on site and available to all crew members. We'll say that this is satisfactory. Okay, and you'll note at the bottom of our screen here, there's a little picker. So if it was unsatisfactory, we could choose that. Satisfactory, we could choose that. A couple of the handy features of the mobile devices, you will note on the bottom left, there is a next and previous. And if I tap the next button, it will simply take me down to the next data field. Are the JHA and tailboard meetings attended and signed? And let's say that all these things are satisfactory as we go through them. You'll note I can zip through these very quickly just by tapping the next button. Okay. So very easy to complete the form. Certainly a whole lot faster than if I was using a pencil to do this. Let's go ahead and we're done with this section. Let's go to electrical. Let's choose unsatisfactory here. And again, I can use the next button, which is unsatisfactory. Lots of unsatisfactory stuff here. Okay, great. And we'll say that we are done. Okay, so a couple of things have happened here. I've noted that there are three data fields that where the condition is unsatisfactory. And you will note the red bar that pops up next to something that the system recognizes as deficient. It is not the desired condition. And so we can see that easily by the red indicators. And you also note that over in the section under electrical, there is the number 3, which just lets us know, hey, that in this section, there are 3 items that are unsatisfactory. This makes it very easy when we are going back to our contractor in this scenario to review unsatisfactory conditions and perhaps even have him sign off that he acknowledges those unsatisfactory conditions. Okay? So I think that kind of demonstrates how you can go through the form. Again, let's just fill this in as satisfactory. Nice quick way, just use that next button. And let's make the next one unsatisfactory. Let's say we're done with that. Okay. One of the other features of mobile forms, which is very, very wonderful to have in terms of a report that you are creating, is the ability to add photos. And so I'll pop down to the photo section. Photos can be added to any data field, any section of the form. In our demo environment here, they're in their own section. I'm just going to tap on photo 1. I'm going to take a photo, and nice close-up of my phone here. We'll take a shot of that. We'll use that. Important to note that you can take photos right then and there on the device, or you can upload photos that may already be on the device. Okay. And further, with this photo that I've taken, let's go ahead and annotate the photo. So we want to identify the item that we want to call to someone's attention. We'll go ahead and we'll save this photo. Okay. And now let's assume we've done our job here. We have filled out the entire form, and let's go ahead and submit this form. In the top right, there is a submit button. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tap that. Important to note here also that we do need to be connected at this point. For use of the mobile form, the fact is you do not have to be connected to Wi-Fi in order to collect the data. You can do that fully offline. If you are doing a lookup, like I did at the beginning, we're looking up a person's name, you do need connectivity for that. But beyond that, you can use the mobile phone completely offline. I'm going to go ahead and submit this form. Okay, and so you'll note here, I get a message that there are missing required fields. And this goes back to that yellow indicator bar that we looked at on the OJT earlier. I'm missing one required field, and all required fields must be completed in order to submit the form. I'm going to say OK. And the form shows me where that required field is. It's up under General, and I forgot to do that. Yes, we need the contractor to sign. So I'm going to ask Jim Boyd to go ahead and sign this. I've gone over the deficiencies that we identified, and this lets us know that Jim is contractor contact is aware of that. We're going to save Jim's signature, and now let's go ahead and we'll submit. Okay, the form will give us some general information, who the inspector is, the creation time, etc. We'll go ahead and submit. And the form will give us an indication of whether that form has been submitted successfully or not. In this case, we have a successful submission. Okay. And now the form, the mobile device, the app actually will take us back to our form library, where we can, again, use our mobile forms to do the next inspection or audit. One other important feature, that inspection that we just did is no longer on the resident on the mobile device. It has been moved to the online system where we can go and view the data that's submitted. So no longer on the device. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing the device, and let's take a look at a couple of other features which are very nice and unique to the system. So something happened. Once I submitted that form, I'm going to open up Outlook here, and I'm going to pop open the form here. Oops. And a couple of things happened. Again, while I'm collecting this data in real time,
right at the top there, I think.
Yeah, you know what? I wanted to just pop up here. There we go. Okay. All right. And again, here is a submission that I just got. And now this presumes we would have set up notifications in advance, and it allows me to route these submissions to anyone in the organization that I want. This presumes I'm the person responsible for rectifying any contractor safety issues. But you see in the email notification here a couple of things. We can see the time and date that this was submitted, who submitted it, what site was it submitted at, who is the contractor company, who was the contact at the contractor, and then the deficiencies that were identified. So a quick, easy way for me to kind of get a clue about how serious these things are and if immediate action is necessary. It also provides me a link that will take me right to the system and take me right to this particular inspection. And so you'll note a couple of things. Again, the submission time, date, the total number of flagged items, meaning the number of deficient items that were found. We can also see that this form has a workflow. So it's pending approval, meaning I'm the person responsible for rectifying any deficiencies with this contractor. I need to make any comments, let you know exactly what I did to rectify the situation, and then approve this in order for this to go through and be fully submitted. And so as we look through the form, we can see the general information that was noted, the location, the fact that Jim signed off. As we cruise down, we can kind of see the various sections of the form, the unsatisfactory conditions that were identified. Another convenient way to move through these forms, the system will automatically correct the ability to jump from section to section. So again, that's the general section. I can move right to electrical to see what the unsatisfactory conditions are. I can further move to hand power tools, check out that section, or move to photos, where I can see the photo that was just taken and the annotation that was included. Okay. One of the other nice features is the ability to grab a GPS coordinate. And so in this case, I can click to view where this inspection was done. And we see here is the dot right here. I'm in Collegeville, Pennsylvania, actually, currently. We can grab our little guy here. Let me drag him over here. And so if I want to see exactly where the inspection was done, this is the TPC office building here in Collegeville outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And this is where I am currently and where I have done the inspection. Okay. And now that I have reviewed this, it presumes I would have taken action to make sure that the contractor rectified the deficiencies that were identified. I'm going to make my comments. Deficiencies rectified. We may want more detail than that, but for our purposes today, I'm going to go ahead and submit that. And based on my workflow, the status of this report is now approved. And so we're going to go over and take a look at all of the form submissions. Yeah, and we're going to see all of our site safety inspections here that have been submitted. Okay, so this is a view of everything from everywhere. So the system can provide you various filters. This would be part of your setup process based on your organization, but all territories is what we're looking at now, so everything. Or we could look at just the Mid-Atlantic region, right? We could filter by that. We could view simply by site. Okay, let's look at Buffalo Grove, since that's what I just chose. We'll filter on Buffalo Grove, and we'll see the forms that have been submitted just in regard to Buffalo Grove location. Okay. Another thing, we can search by user or even the person that the form was submitted by. So I know that we did. I think our contractor user was Jim Boyd, and Jim Boyd is our user. We can filter on Jim, and now anything associated with this particular this user pops up. So if we were doing a different kind of mobile form, like a employee observation, for example, very easy to filter and get to the information I need. I think the other important thing to note about this particular dashboard view, I'm just going to let me get rid of, clear all the filters so we can see everything again. is that if I am the person responsible for rectifying any deficiency that's found, I can see immediately the current status of that report. Okay, and the one that I just submitted is approved, but we can see that there are others that are pending approval. This gets to the point of being able to identify that a situation that is not the desired condition has actually been rectified. And the system will note that visually here, to letting us know, or any of our management team know, there are still items that are deficient here that need to be looked at. And so if I'm the person responsible, I would go back into the form, again, review the form, make any comments, and approve. And the status, again, will change to approved. And now when we go back to our stack of submissions, we can see exactly what's been approved and what has not been approved. Okay. And lastly, I just wanted to show you a quick view of another dashboard. Again, these are the two forms that you'll recognize were in my mobile, when I pulled up my mobile device, the app on the mobile device. They're here. We have some pre-filtered views, and we can see for the site safety demo, for example, today that there were 5 submissions. In the last 7 days, there were 17 submissions. Further, the system will provide a multi-view. And so, for example, here, just in the last 5 days, we had 5 forms submitted. We can view the forms. We can also look at the data side by side. So we can easily see conditions that may have changed over time or not changed over time. Okay, so this is that ability to kind of view the data side by side quickly and easily to note if there are trends developing, if there's something that has gone unrectified or continues to happen over time. Okay, and that's our forms dashboard. So I wanted to give you just a little bit of a flavor of some of the features and functionality available to you using a mobile form. And I think at this point, Ryan, I know you want to talk about on-the-job trainings and their applicability to mobile forms.
Yes, sir. I'll go back to your presentation and then I'll get us started.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so this next leg of our presentation is going to be all about conducting on-the-job training in the 21st century, guys. On-the-job training is really all about kind of that 70% of learning that sometimes we forget about when it comes to training and developing our people. People learn by doing. That's what we really understand. They can learn in the classroom. They can learn by someone showing them how to do it. But until they get a chance to do it and demonstrate that they can do it themselves, that's really where it all comes into. So do you got the presentation ready there, Eric?
I will stop sharing. And if you want to take over.
Sure thing. I'll reshare here. Let me bring this up. Okay, share my screen. All right, so we're talking about on-the-job training. So this concept is really, again, all about doing, right? Learning the essential tasks of the job and really doing it with the guidance of a trusted trainer and mentor. So I want you to reflect for a moment to say, how do I train my people on the job? Whether it be for maintenance, for machine operation, for administrative, or for management, right? Or for leadership. How are we training our people? Well, there's documented processes in place for proper OJT in this industry, and that really comes down to, if you were to ask what best practices are for on-the-job training, it's introduce a given task, right? Practice that task with the employee and the mentor working together. And then finally, the mentor will verify the performance of that given task with the employee. The key here is that historically, maybe I want you to ask, was this process written down? Was this process documented in any way? If you say, well, they showed them this and we walked through it together, but we didn't really write anything down, that can be a really dangerous thing when it comes to on-the-job training. So signatures, right? Signatures verifying each step was completed. And proper on-the-job training, OJT, must be documented, is the real best practice here. Watch out for the idea of tribal knowledge, right? Where everything about the task and the job is right in the brain and the head of the person, right? Instead of on paper. This can be a really dangerous thing for employees because that knowledge isn't with the organization, it's more with individuals. So having a documented, agreed upon list of competencies is an important aspect of on-the-job training. And then if we can sign off on each of those competencies that they are practiced and verified using forms, that can help us. So what are those ingredients that goes into, what are some of those tools we use for on-the-job training, right? Those ingredients we need to do good on-the-job training. What does that documentation look like? Well, in some cases it might absolutely certainly be mentor checklists. So the checklists of the tasks that you need to work through as the mentor and the trainee. But also how to standard operate your machine. So standard operating procedures, SOPs we call them. Different organizations have different names for these, but basically here's the steps you should follow when, let's say, starting up your machine or shutting down your machine or doing maintenance on your machine. Job safety analyses, JSAs, these are definitely a hot ticket item over the last few years. Talking about the different risks associated with tasks for your job and how to avoid those risks in being safe, right? We want new employees to know how to be safe and do their job safely. So that will be used for on-the-job training. How about process flows, right? You know how material comes in and flows out of your machine. Making sure they understand and are trained on that, as well as any schematics on how the machine works and how to use those schematics to troubleshoot your machine. This is all part of the family of things you might find yourself needing to access for on-the-job training. Now, I want you to think, where is this content and where are all these objects stored presently? And some of you might answer, here. Right? In a big filing cabinet full of papers and binders, and maybe under your desk, maybe out on the floor, manufacturing floor, maybe they're strewn about with coffee stains and whatnot. So like Eric was talking about, the storage of paper becomes problematic, especially if you have multiple employees you're trying to train and to get access to documents all at the same time. So in the 21st century, if we can transform all these flying pieces of paper into digital formats, just like Eric showed us, some of these forms can all be stored and curated and accessible instantly through the magic of mobile forms and through the internet, right? Online or offline, right? They can be downloaded to mobile pads. iPads and other tablets are really becoming super essential for increasing our productivity of our training and our learning in the workforce. Those mentor checklists, first and foremost, right? Task number 1, sign here, initial here within the form. You don't have to worry about where did the form go. It's always going to be saving right into the online system for accessibility anytime you need. Signatures and initials. So people used to think that, okay, you can't do really online forms because they don't verify that someone actually, that the person in question actually signed the form. Well, thanks to signatures that can be done just with the swipe of your finger, just like any signature can do, now you can really have that verifiable confirmation that the person in charge of this form actually did fill out the form for compliance purposes. Checklists, all the SOPs and JSAs we talk about are all stored and organized electronically, not needing to worry about those binders. And what's great is that the curation can be in any way you'd please. So maybe by job, machine operators training documents, maintenance training documents. So you can go by department, shipping and receiving, administrative. You can go by machine, machine number 1 processes, machine number 2 processes, and so on and so forth. You don't really need all the binders, notebooks, and filing cabinets. That'll really increase the efficiency here. And on any device, that's a key component here. Any device, meaning that this can be accessible on the tablet for sure, but also go on your browser. Go on your internet browser and access the forms there too. Go on your cell phone and access the forms there too. So really, any device you might use on a daily basis, you can get access to the forms, and you don't have to find them rolled up in a drawer somewhere. And then finally, zoom in and interact with the different machine schematics. So if you see the schematic showing up on your machine, what you can't do with paper is zoom in, zoom out. Click on the different interactive parts of the schematic, which is definitely doable with software platforms. And then finally, whenever you're asked, you will have the documentation, especially if, let's say, someone like our best friends at OSHA, for instance, come in saying, hey, have you trained your people to do this job safely? You'll be able to say, absolutely, and here it is in the blink of an eye, instead of having to dig through filing cabinets. And I'm sure someone on this call has dealt with the pain associated with having to find your training documentation during an audit. And this really streamlines that kind of process here in the 21st century. So that's all I had for you all. I'll just keep this slide up here, and I will open the floor now for questions and answers. So we got a couple of questions floating in, and I'll give you all a chance to ask some questions here as well. And I'm opening the floor here to you, Eric. Eric, you with me here?
I am, Ryan.
All right. So let's go through some of the questions we're getting on the line. The first being, can alerts be set up within the mobile forms to go to multiple contacts instead of just one?
Yeah, so great question. Yes, absolutely. Alerts can go to as many folks as are appropriate. In fact, the alerts can go to folks based on the deficiencies identified. So if, for example, in part of a mobile form, there may be some safety issues, alerts can go to the safety person responsible. But yeah, absolutely, multiple notifications to multiple folks.
Excellent. And another comment or a question about the functionality of the forms is, let's say we do get an unsatisfactory response. Can we design the form to require a comment on as to why the unsatisfactory has been made? Can we design the form to those type of specifications, let's say?
Yeah, absolutely. So another good point. Yes, the form is really flexible, and so that if you wanted a comment by each data point that we were collecting, such that you could make a comment, we can absolutely design the form that way. If you would want the ability to take a photo based on that particular data point, we can design the form that way. Yeah, so very, very, very flexible.
Awesome. And how about due dates? Can we assign auto-generated due dates on these that can maybe remind people weekly or at any other period of time to fill these forms out?
Yeah, so that would typically be done through the actual system, the online system. The system can notify folks that it's time to do something, or it's time to redo something. We expect you to do these things annually. The actual system can notify you that it's time to do that. And then it's up to you to grab your mobile device and actually, grab the appropriate mobile form and complete that task. Absolutely.
And let's see, on the topic of unsatisfactory tasks, Eric, let's say if there are multiple unsatisfactory tasks and you were the approver and you've only approved 2/3 that were completed, what would happen then?
Yeah. So in our demo example, I gave a pretty simple workflow example where there was simply one comment box and then I submitted that. But the fact is, the online response and workflow could be designed so that you could respond to some, but not all of the issues that were identified during an inspection with a mobile form. So yeah, in other words, so we would know that some of the things were rectified in this particular form, but some other things remain.
Excellent. And keep your guys' questions coming. These are excellent questions. I will direct our attention to an email we received. And I'd like you to maybe comment on the question on this email, Eric, on the idea of ROI and kind of return on investment. If we're trying to come to our are, let's say, supervisors or managers who have been doing it with paper for the last 20 years. How can we convince them with maybe dollars and cents or with actual hard data on why this is going to be worth their while?
Yeah, so another great question. I mean, there are definitely some industry stats regarding, the cost of paper. Not only the cost of an individual actually having to, go through a paper process and try to aggregate that data. There are industry stats that we could certainly provide to you. But often, what we've found working with our clients is that each scenario is a little bit different. I'll give you an example of that. Spoke with a client last week, and really the issue was they were contemplating hiring a full-time person to track down the number of hours worked. So in other words, this was a contractor company, has a bunch of crews all over the place, and what they were doing currently is the supervisors out on site are collecting data in spreadsheets, and they are faxing those things, they are emailing those things. Sometimes they're dropping them off, the paper forms, in the office. Those paper forms, the data on those forms then needed to get entered into a separate system, and just a horrible process. And they just couldn't keep up with it. And so, their answer was, well, let's hire a full-time person who will just chase down all these papers, right? So, I mean, there is your part of your part of your justification. But certainly, I think with a short conversation, we could absolutely assist you in supporting the concept. Again, not only with industry stats, but maybe with looking at your particular scenario, as an example I just gave, and helping you, justify the concept.
Excellent. Some of you are asking about contact information on how to follow up on this. So we're definitely getting you the information on our direction. And then as a two-way street, if you ever want to ask us further questions, the best central place to ask is this really sloppily drawn with my mouse email address I just put on our screen, sales@tpctraining.com. That is the best email address to ask any inquiries about our products, what we do. But for those of you asking about how these mobile forms play into what you customarily understand about TPC in their offerings, is it's all about developing our people. The idea of workforce development. Definitely training. It's as historically people know TPC as a training company who offers technical training both in the classroom and online, but people also need to learn and develop when they're not in the classroom, and when they're on the job, and when they are looking to advance their careers, and when they need help just going about their day-to-day jobs after the classroom, like managing contractors and managing their incidents and managing their on-the-job training with mentors, all this kind of stuff. So people have need all throughout their learning journeys, not just in the classroom. And so our company is evolving into that larger scale concept of workforce development, we call it. So you're going to hear it again and again from us. Is the idea of workforce development is really where the industry is heading and where TPC is heading. So I hope that helps answers your question, but there's definitely a lot of great opportunity there with technology in today's day and age. Let's see, we got just a couple more minutes and a couple more questions. So let's ask this question. Can you make forms into a spreadsheet, Eric, that data can be accumulated on and then downloaded to a mainframe at the end of the day, or let's say at the end of the week?
Okay. Yeah. So so kind of an interesting approach there. The system can, for example, aggregate the data, pull it into the system, and for example, I demonstrated a multi-view where we could look at, for example, the last 7 submissions of a mobile form, or the last 14. So the system can provide that view electronically. The system will also allow you to download that as an Excel spreadsheet to then do whatever you want with it. Perhaps a little sexier way to do that would be to provide the data that's gathered via the system, but then actually feed it to your existing systems. And that is something we do very often. We actually provide systems integration on the front end and back end. So meaning we may want a list of your current employees to be available to your users within mobile forms if they're doing these on-the-job trainings like Ryan you discussed. So there will be some integration of us pulling in your current list of employees. And then on the back end, once the data is collected, we have the ability to do systems integration and take the data that's coming into the system and feed it to an additional system.
Perfect. Well, thanks so much, Eric. And just last little tidbits here. Can a form be denied instead of approved?
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Okay.
So, yeah, absolutely. Yep. Workflow. Yep.
Excellent. So depending on how you set your workflow, and then just to tie up some loose ends, I'll answer the last few questions I see, and that is, will you have access to this recording after this is over? Absolutely. So what we're going to be doing is posting this recording onto our website webinar page. So you're going to be seeing that in just a few business days. But also, we're going to be sending you the PDF of this presentation for you to view and to see at your own leisure. And then, are there any pre-made forms available? Absolutely there are. So TPC already offers a suite of technical on-the-job training assessments kind of off the shelf. But I also want to make it known that on-the-job training a lot of times is industry and company specific. So but we can work with you to create custom mobile forms for your facility as well. It's kind of it's a modern day of age reality where training needs to be personalized to what you're doing. So that's a big part of what we're doing as well. Yes, we have standard, like you saw, safety inspection checklists, incident management forms, and contractor management forms. Those are all kind of available within our system in particular, and a lot of places have standard forms. Well, this has been very informative, and I really appreciate all of you for being involved. It's the top of the hour of the webinar, so we will definitely respect your time commitment here and close the webinar for now. Again, if any questions come up to, let's say between you, your colleagues, or just anyone you're speaking to about this idea, feel free to get in touch with us at this email address here, sales@tpctraining.com. We have a very technical and knowledgeable sales staff that can get you anything you need and provide you any information on how this thing works. We have demos. We've got everything you need. So feel free to get in touch. Thank you very much, Eric, for your time, and thank you everyone on the line for your time, and we will see you soon. Thank you.